Kirsty, it's not an exaggeration to say that there is absolute turmoil tonight in the Parliamentary Labour Party. This is what one shadow minister told me. Number 10 could not have designed this better to make us look awful. It is a disaster. And let's just look at this tweet from Dame Margaret Hodge, the veteran Labour MP and former minister who told Jeremy Corbyn to his face that he was a racist and an anti-Semite. So she has tweeted, "I simply cannot comprehend why it is acceptable for Corbyn to be a Labour MP if he thinks anti-Semitism is exaggerated and a political attack, refuses to apologise, never takes responsibility for his actions and rejects the findings of the EHRC report. Ridiculous," she said. Now, I understand that Dame Margaret has relayed her concerns directly to Sir Keir Starmer, and as I understand it, he faces a fight on his hands to persuade her to remain as a Labour MP.
So how did it blow up?
Well, this all dates back 3 weeks ago to the finding by that EHRC report that the Labour Party had unlawfully discriminated against Jewish Labour Party members. Now, on the day of the report, Jeremy Corbyn accepted the recommendations of that report and he said that there had been a problem with anti-Semitism. But then he said this.
The numbers have been exaggerated, in my view. The public perception in an opinion poll last year was that 1/3 of all Labour Party members were somehow or other under suspicion of anti-Semitism. The reality is it was 0.3% of party members had a case against them which had to be put through the process.
Well, that claim about an exaggeration led to his suspension from Labour, which was endorsed by Keir Starmer.
I made it clear that we won't tolerate anti-Semitism or the denial of anti-Semitism through the suggestion that it's exaggerated or factional. And that's why I was disappointed with Jeremy Corbyn's response, and that is why appropriate action has been taken, which I fully support.
And now Jeremy Corbyn has been readmitted to the Labour Party after releasing a statement that he sent to the party on the day of his suspension, in which he clarified his remarks. So let's look at the actual the crucial bit of that statement. And there you go. It says, "To be clear, concerns about anti-Semitism are neither exaggerated nor overstated. The point I wished to make was that the vast majority of Labour Party members were and remain committed anti-racist, deeply opposed to anti-Semitism." Now, Jeremy Corbyn regards that as a clarification, not a U-turn. A clarification that people's concerns about anti-Semitism were not exaggerated, but the scale of anti-Semitism was exaggerated.
So this would appear to suggest that Jeremy Corbyn is saying, yes, I now fully support what is in the Equalities and Human Rights Commission report, but that still leaves Keir Starmer the problem. It undermines his leadership.
Yes, so tonight he is under intense pressure with a very unhappy parliamentary party, and tonight he tweeted a lengthy thread, not a word welcoming Jeremy Corbyn back into the party, and this is how he began that. He said, "I know that this has been another painful day for the Jewish community and those Labour members who fought so hard to tackle anti-Semitism. I know the hurt that has been caused and the trauma people have felt." Now, I spoke to one member of the Shadow Cabinet. They do not detect in this decision to bring Jeremy Corbyn back sort of die-hard supporters in the NEC plotting to bring Jeremy Corbyn back. It's more a case of Labour officials taking to heart one of the main criticisms in that report of political involvement in decision-making over cases and keeping Jeremy Corbyn at arm's length. But there is a very strong... Sorry, Keir Starmer. There's a very strong feeling in the Labour Party and indeed in the Shadow Cabinet that Keir Starmer and the leadership have one card left they could play, which is not to restore the Labour whip to Jeremy Corbyn.
Nick, thank you very much indeed. Well, to discuss this further, I'm joined in the studio by Jenny Manson, the co-chair of Jewish Voice for Labour, and from Liverpool Riverside, the former MP for that area, Louise Ellman. Jenny Manson, first of all, why couldn't Jeremy Corbyn simply apologise today for what he said on the day that the report was published?
Well, first of all, I want to correct something you were saying. He did not reject the findings of the EHRC. I want to say some things about the EHRC report myself. He did not reject the findings. In that speech, you'll find he did not reject it.
He said that let's be quite clear. What he said, and he said it there, that it actually had been accusations of anti-Semitism in the party had been dramatically exaggerated.
So I was talking about the fact he did not reject the findings of the EHRC report, which I think was said a moment ago. He did not.
We didn't say he rejected the findings. He said they've been dramatically exaggerated.
2 points. Okay,
Why didn't he apologise? I'm asking you that straightforward question.
Because many of us know that these claims have been exaggerated. I am Jewish too. There's a lot of talk about the Jewish community just now and how offended they are and how Keir is very worried about them. Nobody seems to remember that there are about 250,000 or 300 Jews in this country. A very large number of ours...
So let me be quite clear in terms of your numbers.
I am saying that...
In terms of your numbers, make your point about the numbers.
What I'm trying to say is there is many Jewish communities, and they are not all upset about Jeremy being back in the Labour Party. An awful lot of us are very happy that he's back in the party. And a lot of us would say, like he said, that the allegations were over-exaggerated, partly by the media. So the figure he mentioned, in a book called Bad News for Labour, they discovered that people out there think that 30% of Labour Party members have been investigated. The actual figures are something like 0.0. And can I also say that many of those allegations, according to the EHRC, were not correct?
Can I just say that you talk about many Jewish people are behind Jeremy Corbyn. There's 84% of the British Jewish community believe there's a specific threat to British Jews, according to the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism's yearly study. That is a substantial number. You know that the British Board of Jewish Deputies overwhelmingly think this is a retrograde step, and you don't represent them.
No. Can I just say something? About 10, 20 years ago, Jews stopped voting Labour, so there's a considerable feeling, about 80% of people don't do it. Among the Jews who are... Secular Jews often don't get invited for these surveys because they're not even registered. All I can tell you is that the Haredi community does not feel like that. Secular Jews don't feel like that.
You cannot lump all... You say secular Jews as if it's the whole homogeneity
of that group. I'm not lumping any more than anyone else is.
But can I ask you about what you make of the actual report? Jeremy Corbyn said he will support the EHRC recommendations in full. Is he right to do that?
The recommendations are okay, but can I just say something about the EHRC?
Is he right? But he's right to do that.
He's perfectly right to do that. There are some points there that we're very worried about. We want, for example, as another Jewish a part of the Jewish community, we're very much hoping that Keir Starmer will talk to us about training. We have our own training beliefs. But let me just tell you one thing about the report. The report found it makes no statement about the scale of anti-Semitism whatsoever, but what it did find is that there were very unfair practice in the investigation, and many respondents, people accused, are particularly unfairly dealt with.
Well, let's move on.
Nobody's talking about that.
Let's move on and talk about the future. Do you now think that all supporters of Jeremy Corbyn should throw their weight behind Keir Starmer and bring unity to the party?
It's a difficult question. I would be very sad indeed if the whip is taken away from Jeremy. I do, of course. I'm a Labour Party member and I'm fiercely loyal to the party, and I would very much like unity. I'm very pleased.
And are you ready to throw your weight behind Keir Starmer?
I don't know what throw weight means. I've never thrown my weight behind any leader. I agree with it.
Do you support Keir Starmer in everything that he's doing for the party? And should other people in the same position as you, with your views, do the same?
I wasn't happy with his view on the bill on soldiers' amnesty. Nobody ever supports the leader completely. Of course I support the leadership of the Labour Party and the Labour Party. I'm a Labour Party member, fiercely loyal, very, very happy to have unity again. Pleased with the decision today. I would be very pleased.
What happens if Keir Starmer does remove the whip from Jeremy Corbyn? You said you heard Nick Watt say that that's a possibility.
Well, I'll be very sorry. What I want to talk about is justice. Jeremy is a very good man. He's an anti-racist. The EHRC report admits that when he appointed the General Secretary, Jenny Formby, procedures started to get better. Shami Chakrabarty's report is validated in the EHRC findings. I would like the media and yourselves, and I'm very pleased to be on, to start to look a bit more widely at what's going on, what the report says, what Jews, apart from those who speak up against him, think. We are also important. We are also spokesmen.
Indeed. Let me now turn to Louise Ellman. Louise Ellman, what do you make of Jeremy Corbyn's readmittance today?
I think this is a backward step. Keir Starmer has been very clear that he was going to eradicate Labour's shameful anti-Semitism. After all, the EHRC report found Jeremy Corbyn's leadership responsible for anti-Semitism in the Labour Party and said that the growth of anti-Jewish racism in the Labour Party was at odds with the party's commitment to anti-racism. So it couldn't have been clearer than that. Keir Starmer has given strong commitments. Today, a decision was taken by the members of the Labour Party through the National Executive Committee to readmit Jeremy Corbyn without him making any apology for what he had done. I think it is a very backward step.
If he had made an apology, would that, do you think, have drawn a line in the sand?
If he had accepted his responsibility for the demise of the Labour Party, partly because of its anti-Jewish racism, and regretted what he had done, I think that would have made a very difference. He
did say that he made it clear that concerns about anti-Semitism weren't exaggerated. He did say that today.
The statement he issued today was more of a form of words, I suspect, designed to allow him to be readmitted to the Labour Party. That phrase was very ambivalent. He could have been referring to anti-Semitism in society, not in the Labour Party. And he is responsible for what has happened. It is disgraceful and horrendous that under his leadership, British Jews were thinking of leaving the country should he become Prime Minister. Most people have now recognised that the Labour Party went into a very shameful situation. It must now get away from that. Keir Starmer has given the commitment to do it. The members of the Labour Party today did something that took us backwards. I hope that the members of the Labour Party now will listen to the Labour Party's new leadership, and let's rid the Labour Party of this dreadful anti-Jewish racism.
In a way, I mean, Keir Starmer took on board this idea that one of the criticisms had been of procedures before, that there had been political interference from the leader's office. So, of course, he stood back and, as it were, let the procedure take place. There was nothing else, presumably, that Keir Starmer could have done before today.
Well, this was a decision of Labour Party members through the National Executive Committee, and it suggests to me that at least those members simply have not changed. New members have now been elected to that committee, and I hope the new members will follow the new leader, Keir Starmer.
But you think there's still problems within the NEC? Sorry,
there clearly are big problems looking at today's decision. And what Keir Starmer and the Chief Whip should do now is to refuse to restore the whip to Jeremy Corbyn. In that way, they can show that they are determined, as they've said they are, to rid the party of this dreadful stain.
So, you know, we heard, and you'll have heard Nick Watts say that he has spoken to 3 Labour MPs and hears that there is a very great likelihood that Margaret Hodge will resign as a Labour MP tomorrow. Can you give me your reaction to the possibility of that?
Well, Margaret Hodge has been a valiant opponent of racism in the party and challenged Jeremy Corbyn directly. She has fought very, very hard against anti-Semitism in the party. It would be a tragedy if at this stage, under a new leader, she felt forced to resign. But the Labour Party have to show that they are going to change, and they're going to allow Keir Starmer, the new leader, to deliver his promises.
So, as far as you're concerned, she should stay?
It has to be a decision for Margaret, but it would be a very tragic situation if, after all the fighting she's done, she felt she had to go. I hope the situation can be redeemed.
So just picking up what you were saying about the whip, you believe that what is open now to Keir Starmer is to withdraw the whip from Jeremy Corbyn. What then happens, in your view, if he was to do that? What would then happen? Presumably, there would be people like Jenny Manson and others of her ilk. There would be, again, a big battle in the party.
There will be an ongoing battle in the party until the party is rid of the stain of anti-Semitism. You can't be an anti-racist party at the same time as carrying out racism against Jewish people. After all, the Equality and Human Rights Commission found that Jewish members of the Labour Party had been harassed and had faced indirect discrimination. That is shameful.